Welcome to Winging It with Wingo with your host, Derek Wingo. Welcome to Winging It with Wingo with your host, Derek Wingo. Super excited for the special guest today, Cory Davis. We're going to be talking about the untold financial truth about athletes. Cory, thank you for kind of taking the time to chop it up with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about this because it's more about education, right? It's like letting athletes know, or even the general population, what they can do for more success. So we talk a lot about this 78% number. It's huge. I see it everywhere. I hear it everywhere. I want to know from your perspective, what is this 78%, and then like what goes behind it? How is this calculated? What kind of has been that adds all up to that?
Yeah. 78% of NFL players go broke within 3 years of football. That's just a statistic. And it's something I'm passionate about. My goal is to influence that number. It's the history of football. We don't have guaranteed contracts, overspending money. I mean, we'll go through all of the whys, but it's an impactful number. And these guys are broke no matter what they're making within 3 years, 78%.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something, when you look back in college football, they weren't able to make money before. And now there's NIL. So now this is something that is coming at a lot earlier in stages of life through a lot of these athletes where they're making this abundance of money at such a young age. So now it's not even just educating these NFL guys, but being able to educate, the younger generation. Yeah. So for me, I was very fortunate enough to be able to understand what that looked like, and having saving accounts, having a Roth IRA account, having things set aside so that when you're done with playing football, you had certain financial stability. You knew a path that you wanted to take. So I kind of wanted to ask you, what would be, obviously your advice to someone in the NFL has a little bit more understanding. What would be somewhat of your advice to someone that's in college now, is seeing money that they haven't seen before, what they should do with it, who they should talk to, and maybe just how they should outreach to understand about it and more information?
Yeah, there's a lot there. So I actually disagree with the NFL players knowing more from experience.
Really?
Yeah. So previous to NIL, I was against NIL initially. And I thought kids were just going to blow their money. I was of the conventional thought, you're on scholarship, whatever. And NFL, the problem is a lot of these guys walk into millions of dollars and they have no experience with anything, and when it's done, it's done. With college, a couple are getting millions. Most of them are in the 100,000, 200,000. It's coming over time, and they're getting it installments, monthly. They're actually learning more about it. And this year I was most impressed because, like with you and other people that you're friends with that I've talked to that are transitioning from college to pro, understand IRA. They know what it's like to overspend $100,000. Yeah. And as much as that sounds crazy to overspend $100,000, I'd rather you overspend $100,000 than overspend $1 million.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening in the NFL. So they're overspending the larger dollar. What I would say is, this is for pro and for college. I work with entrepreneurs. I consider my athletes entrepreneurs. You as a football player, whatever sport, UFC, basketball, doesn't matter. You have to look at yourself as an owner, as a business owner of your own brand, of your own position. The team, the college, they're a business. They're employing you to play a role. You have to look at yourself as such. You're not an employee of them. If you look at that, you will be that. You have to treat yourself as that. So what does that mean? You have to understand cash flow. You have to understand what's coming in, what's coming out. What does money mean? How do we save money? What's good leverage? What's bad leverage? It's actually happening, I've noticed in college, which I think will transition well to the pros. My concern is the locker room and the influence of other people, and still big money.
Absolutely.
But at least a knowing is there, but having people to lean on and trust, I think is huge too.
Yeah, so I would almost put myself, when NIL first came out, I was a victim of, knowing that that check was coming on the first.
Yep.
So I'd go on a little vacation or a bye week or whatever. I'd go travel, and I knew I could blow the whole check because I knew I was getting on the first. So that's definitely something that, I see a lot of college athletes doing. And, when I
call that the welfare mentality.
Yeah. So when I do look at it more on the positive side, at least you're doing it now with lower amounts of money than you realizing it at an early age.
Correct.
So that when you do get on that pedestal, you understand kind of what to do with it. All right, so I do have to ask, these education, the tools for college athletes, NFL, obviously all is important. Mm-hmm. What makes you want to be the guy who's educational? What kind of inspired you and gave you the drive to not only just, be in this space, mm-hmm. but want to be in this space for athletes yourself?
So I played through the collegiate level. My CFP played through the collegiate level. So when I started in the business, I was only with entrepreneurs. It just fell in that way. I'm an entrepreneur. I understand the mindset. And then over the course of the years, I've worked with numerous athletes, and it just organically built. And I've experienced the locker room. I know what it's like in the locker room. I know what athletes go through. I also understand there's bad people in my industry.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, after going through and building enough of a community, I decided it's really time to move the needle. Really, it's the 78%. The 78% kind of pissed me off, to be honest with you. And my network of people are athletes. I have a ton of athlete friends. That's how we met. And I don't want to sit by. I think they need good advice. I want to move the needle. And I really think it's the wrong angle that's been approached. If we teach athletes how to be business owners and have an entrepreneur mindset, you're going to make a change. And for me, that's what I do anyway, so it kind of correlates well. But it's not just while they're playing, it's also developing them for post-sport. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to call it a passion project, it's my identity. I'm an athlete, so I'm speaking to my group.
So when I think about an athlete, I think about, they wake up with a schedule, right? Mm-hmm. They wake up and do things with a purpose. They walk around with a certain mentality that I think is different than, the regular average Joe that might be on the street. So this is why I think athletes are you're already set up for success, right? And especially when you're going to college, you get your free education, you're getting NIL now, you're getting the connection space, being able to travel the world. All these different things are being put in your ball court. Mm-hmm. It's how you can kind of build this tight circle of niche people who can help make you and make the right decisions for you later on to have success. Community. So
that's part of this athlete for athlete. So to me, athlete for athlete, besides the athletes helping athletes in the literal sense of advising, it's also about the community of people. We already have certain ethics. Mm-hmm. We have a way of going about ourselves daily through schedules and all that. There's, you know how to lean on each other. You, as a linebacker, you have to do your job. If you try to do someone else's job, you just fucked up your job.
Exactly.
So you have to lean on each other. So community matters, because the more that you have athletes helping athletes, more education behind it, there's success that develops, and you can all lean on each other. So building that community is huge too.
Yeah, definitely. And you talked about athletes for athletes, right? This is something that, not only you're so used to doing it on the field, it's now kind of, we want to transition to that, to how we can do it off the field with the same mentality, the same, drive, the same influence that you already have. We've been through so much as athletes. How can you, my dad always said it, what could I have told my 18-year-old self to make myself better now when I'm 23, right? And now we're in a certain position where these athletes who are maybe still in the NFL, or now their career is done over, and how can you go back and help these guys? As in the sports agency world, that's the same thing that I strive for, is being a mentor to these younger athletes, to not only help them through their careers, but help them financially, help them spiritually, help them in the mental aspect, and all these different things.
That's a huge component, is the mental. We go through so much, whether it be injuries, losing your job, getting back your job, personal stuff. It's draining, and the schedule itself. So like for me, the athlete for athlete kind of pursuit, the initial part was building up athletes. Now there's a recipe, right? We know what works, from vets of 13, 14 years down to rookies. Okay, but now we are developing athletes to help other athletes, brotherhood, right? Guidance. Who can we trust? Who can we build around? But it's also like, hey man, how you doing? Like, you know, it was the last tough couple games. How you doing? How's your head? Concussions, you know, how do we work through all this stuff? And I think those are also neglected. So it's kind of, I don't want to say brotherhood, because there's females too in other sports, so it's just a family. But I feel like that is also missed in this whole advising, sports age, everything. It's not just pen and paper investment. It is the full, what are we doing to help develop a man and a woman as an athlete?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we talked about it, you know, we had the pleasure of having you come speak to us during pre-draft and during training. One of the things that we talked about was, you know, having a financial plan and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It was, let's say, for example, on a blank sheet, we're making 10 grand a month, right? We're actually only seeing 6 grand of that, to where it's, if you have an issue with spending, you can go out and spend that knowing that, you know, you have someone like you in the back of the corner where this other 4 grand is being invested, saved, put away for taxes.
Right.
Give me kind of an example of what that looked like with obviously someone maybe you've worked with, that you've been able to communicate with the athlete, they understood that, and then been able to grow on that as maybe their contract expanded, as maybe they earned more money and things like that.
I just talked to a player last night who basically said he wants the same recipe as we did for another one that's been playing for about 13 years. So the phase one was his first contract. I don't care what it is, it's your first contract. You might make it, you might not, right? Whether you're undrafted or not, no one's guaranteeing the second contract. First contract is build liquidity. Okay, we have to pay the taxes. We need enough to live. We want to feel like we made it to the NFL, but don't splurge. Within reason, if you're a first-round draft pick versus undrafted, there's different means there, but within reason. But what it was is, at this time, I'll go back about 13 years ago, it was a $1,500 a week budget. And then it built up from there. We made sure there was an apartment. We made sure all that stuff was taken care of, but we're building liquidity. Fast forward into year 4, an extension happened. Okay, they were still there. They have some children, families starting to come about. We entertained buying a house. But that's not for everybody. Like, I have the clients that have been in the league 8 years and we still don't own a property. Why? They're on 5 different teams. But the liquidity really is what it's about. Because if you have money in the bank account, you feel kind of good, right? So that's number one. And as the contract grows, your spending power grows. The other part to it is, if you spend too much too fast, you're not going to spend less next year. You're not going to be like, well, I was spending 10 grand a month. Right. So we start there and we kind of phase it up. Hopefully you make that second contract. Really, hopefully you make that third contract. Everybody's story is different, but that's kind of the methodology. But all the while, it's about, as your wealth builds, now you have access to different things. You have different investments that you could get into. Maybe you get into different rooms. How do we network? Who do we meet? So those are also part of it that's I would consider intangible, that could develop into other things down the road. But it's building kind of liquidity, then looking into other goals. Maybe it is real estate. Maybe it's businesses, whatever it might be, but we have to do liquidity first. Because if you just start buying things, you don't have liquidity, that means you're relying on leverage, and if you can't pay those, it balloons. That affects the 78%.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the things, I don't remember who told this to me, but they talked a lot about, the team that you have around you as an athlete. You kind of got to look at it like you have a head coach, you have an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, right? Your defensive coordinator is making sure that we're keeping money in the bank.
Correct.
The offensive coordinator is making sure we're spending precisely on the things that we need, and the head coach overseeing all of it in order to make sure that we're staying and we have that cap space. So that's kind of how I look at it when I'm looking at an athlete's finances. And this is something that when you want to be successful and you want to have a plan for success, you got to write these things out. You got to understand. And I almost want to indulge it on a huge board of 78%, because I don't think people really realize the magnitude of how many athletes do run into this issue, because it's hard to go from the G-Wagon and the Lamborghini down to a Toyota and a Nissan, right, when you're in the league for those 3 years. And the average lifespan in the NFL is 3 years. And once you're done with that, and you look around and, everyone's not calling your phone. The phone calls aren't coming, the texts aren't coming through, and the checks definitely aren't coming through. So, this is something where it's about awareness, being able to, speak to these athletes. And a regular person, sometimes when they go to talk to an athlete, they're not going to listen. So the best way to do that is have another athlete be able to pass this voice, to be able to pass this education and things like that.
Correct. Another thing that's crazy is, so that 78% is only really gauging those first 3 years, right? your stories of the guys that go bankrupt aren't part of that 78% initially. They end up being in what's called the 15%, and we've never talked about this. I think it's within like 10 years. Those are the heavy hitters. Because the guys that were on a lower salary, they kind of maybe picked up a coaching job or whatever, they didn't file bankruptcy. But your bigger guys are like, I don't need to do anything. I'm balling, man.
I don't need to work again.
But even Mike Tyson blew 300 mil, right? They're filing actual bankruptcy. So these numbers are skewed. I'd argue that it's more. So the team is crucial. And the thing about the team that's crucial is not only the right people in place, but your willingness to listen. Right? So it's both sides. There's accountability on both ends.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's something that we need to have more awareness on, and something that athletes need to understand, but also listen to the point where I think someone like me and someone like you have a great pedestal in order to do that. I'm excited for athletes. I'm excited for kind of what that platform is going to be able to do. Not only just reach the common athlete in college or in NFL, but the day-to-day person who will just to have education. Like I said before, when you get to that pedestal, the best you can do is give someone the most information and the most knowledge in order to help them make the best decision.
Not only that, right now you have the high school kid looking up to a lot of athletes that are going like this. Imagine the day when you have the high school athlete looking at like the Kevin Durants who are investing into companies and building wealth and things like
someone
that.
Like Shaq.
But someone like Shaq, but more of them. Like you have Shaq he's an anomaly. I mean, he's incredible. But imagine like the middle guys doing the same thing. That's what I envision. Now you have the high school guy, you have the St. Thomas guy that's like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Then we know
we're changing that number a little bit.
Then we're changing
more.
that number.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm super excited for it. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for just being able to pass this message along, have this education, and that's it for today. We go out.